Have you ever asked a simple question that destroyed your entire world? One innocent request that pulled back the curtain on a lie so massive, so carefully constructed, that everyone you trusted was part of the performance? My name is Audrey Brennan. I'm 68 years old, a retired school principal from Augusta, Georgia. 3 years ago, I watched my only son Marcus marry the woman of his dreams in the most beautiful ceremony I'd ever seen. I cried tears of joy. I spent $15,000 of my late husband's life insurance money to make their day perfect. I was so proud. But last month, I asked one simple question about their wedding photographer. The silence that followed lasted exactly 7 seconds. I counted them the way I used to count seconds between lightning and thunder as a child waiting for the storm to hit. What happened next will shake you to your core. If you've ever wondered how far people will go to deceive someone who loves them unconditionally, this story will change everything you believe about family, trust, and the lies people tell for money. But here's what really gets me. I'm a retired educator. For 30 years, I caught students in lies every single day. I could spot deception from across a classroom. Yet my own son, my own daughter-in-law, fooled me completely with a deception so elaborate, so professionally orchestrated, that it involved hired actors, forged documents, and a fake priest. If one question could destroy everything you believed about your family, would you ask it? Subscribe, you'll want to see how deep this goes. The afternoon sun filtered through my living room curtains, casting warm shadows across the coffee table where Denise and I sat with our tea. These weekly visits had become routine since the wedding, a chance for us to bond, mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, the way I'd always hoped we would. Denise looked relaxed, curled up in my favorite armchair with her hands wrapped around the blue ceramic mug I'd bought specifically for her visits. Her blonde hair caught the light, and she was telling me about her new job at the marketing firm downtown. Everything felt normal, comfortable, safe. That's when I made the mistake of asking the question. "Denise, honey, I've been trying to reach your wedding photographer to get some prints made, but I can't seem to find him anywhere. What was his name again?" The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds after I asked about the photographer. I counted them the way I used to count seconds between lightning and thunder as a child waiting for the storm to hit. In those 7 seconds, I watched Denise's face transform. The color drained from her cheeks like water running out of a bathtub. Her hands started trembling around the mug. Her eyes went wide, then darted toward the door like she was calculating escape routes. As a teacher, I'd seen this look thousands of times. It was the exact expression students got when they realized they'd been caught in a lie they couldn't explain away. The deer in headlights panic of someone whose story was about to crumble. Denise stammered, setting down the mug with shaking hands. "He moved. Out of state. Yeah, he moved to California, I think." But I pressed on, my teacher instincts kicking in. When a student gave you a weak answer, you kept digging. "That's okay, I can call him. I just need his business name. Or maybe you have his contact information saved somewhere." The tea in both our cups went cold as Denise started crying. Not gentle tears, but the kind of sobbing that comes from someone whose world is collapsing. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "Denise, what's wrong? It's just a photographer." She looked up at me with red, puffy eyes. Her voice came out in a whisper, barely audible above the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. "There was no photographer, Margaret." My heart stopped. "What do you mean there was no photographer?" "There was no photographer because—" She took a shuddering breath. "Because there was no real wedding." The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. I stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. No real wedding? But I was there. I saw it. I paid for it. That's when the words tumbled out. "There was no photographer, Margaret. There was no real wedding." Pause right here. Write down your first instinct confrontation or investigation. The truth didn't come out cleanly. It spilled like water from a broken dam. Messy, destructive, impossible to stop once it started. I sat perfectly still in my chair, every muscle frozen, while Denise's confession poured over me like ice water. 30 years of classroom management had taught me to stay calm when students melted down. So I listened. I absorbed. I took mental notes while my world crumbled around me. "The ceremony you saw," Denise choked out between sobs, "it was all fake. The priest, the bridesmaids, Even the guests you didn't recognize. They were all actors, professional actors that Marcus hired. My voice came out steady, controlled. Actors. We got married in Las Vegas 6 months before the ceremony, at a little chapel on the Strip. Just the two of us and an Elvis impersonator. She laughed bitterly through her tears. But Marcus said you'd never accept that. He said you'd be heartbroken if you didn't get your dream church wedding. So you hired actors to lie to me. It wasn't supposed to hurt you. Denise's words came faster now, like she was trying to outrun the truth. Marcus said it would make you happy. He said you'd get the wedding you always imagined, and We'd get. You'd get what? She went quiet, staring at her hands. Denise, you'd get what? The money, she whispered. The inheritance money. The clock kept ticking. The sun kept shining through my curtains, but everything else in my world had shifted off its axis. I'd spent $15,000, my dead husband's life insurance money, to pay for a performance, a lie designed to manipulate my emotions and steal my money. How many people knew? I don't know, maybe 20? 30? Marcus handled all the hiring through some casting agency in Atlanta. He told them we needed people for a family event. A family event. I repeated the words slowly, tasting their bitter flavor. Margaret, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Marcus said, what Marcus said doesn't matter right now. I stood up, my legs somehow steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. What matters is that you both lied to me, for money. Denise nodded, tears streaming down her face. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was why they did it. How much deception could you absorb before breaking? Tell me your limit. Marcus had read my will without permission. Line 847, properly married in a church ceremony with family present. 4 words that launched a $15,000 lie. That evening, after Denise left in tears, I went to my study. The room felt different now, violated somehow. I pulled out my filing cabinet and retrieved the folder labeled Estate Documents. My hands were steady as I flipped through the pages, looking for the specific clause that had apparently started this whole mess. There it was, buried in the legal language on page 12. Distribution to surviving son Graham Brennan contingent upon proper marriage and recognized church ceremony with immediate family present as witnesses. I stared at those words I'd written 5 years ago with such careful intention. I'd wanted Marcus to value tradition, to understand the importance of commitment made in the presence of God and family. I never imagined he'd use my own wishes as a weapon against me. But how did he even know about this clause? I walked to my bedroom, opened my jewelry box, and checked the small key I kept hidden underneath the velvet lining. The key to my bedroom safe, where I kept my most important documents. The key was still there, but something felt wrong. The position was slightly off. Back in the study, I examined my filing cabinet more carefully. The folders weren't in their usual order. The edges of documents showed fingerprints that weren't mine. Someone had been going through my private papers systematically, carefully, looking for something specific. My own son had violated my privacy, rifled through my most personal documents, and found exactly what he needed to manipulate me. I sat down at my desk and tried to remember the timeline. Marcus and Denise had been dating for 2 years before their wedding. When had they gotten serious about marriage? When had Marcus started asking questions about my estate planning? The answer hit me like a physical blow. Last Christmas, Marcus had asked me directly about my will. Mom, you should really talk to us about your plans. We don't want any surprises. I'd thought he was being responsible, planning ahead. Instead, he was conducting reconnaissance. They turned your own words into weapons against you. Subscribe, protect yourself from family who read your private papers. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, Curtis Chen. We'd worked together for 15 years, and he'd drafted my will with meticulous care. Robert, it's Audrey Brennan. I need to ask you something confidential. Has anyone ever called your office asking about my will? My son Marcus, specifically? There was a pause. Margaret, you know I can't discuss. Robert, someone has been in my personal files. I need to know if there have been any inquiries about my estate documents. Another pause, longer this time. There was one call, about 18 months ago. A young man claiming to be your son, asking about the requirements for inheritance distribution. I didn't give him any information, of course, but he seemed to know specific details about the marriage clause. 18 months ago, 6 months before their Vegas elopement, a full year before their fake ceremony. This wasn't a spontaneous deception. This was a calculated, long-term fraud that had been in planning for over a year. The will was violated, but my bedroom safe, that lock had been tampered with too. Should children ever read their parents' wills early? Drop your thoughts below. The group text messages told the real story. Screenshots of my own son, placing bets on whether the old lady would cry during their fake vows. The next morning, Marcus stopped by to check on me after Denise's emotional confession. He seemed nervous, fidgety in a way I'd never seen before. While he paced around my living room talking about damage control and family counseling, he left his phone on my kitchen counter. Old habits die hard. As a teacher, I'd confiscated thousands of student phones over the years. I knew the telltale buzz of incoming messages, the glow of notifications that students thought they could hide. Marcus's phone lit up with a text. "Dude, how much trouble are you in? Your mom figure it out yet?" Without thinking, I glanced at the screen. The message thread was labeled Wedding Scam Squad with 5 participants. My son, Denise. 3 friends whose names I recognized from the fake wedding guest list. My teaching instincts kicked in. When you caught students cheating, you documented everything. I picked up the phone, it wasn't locked, and scrolled up through the conversation history. What I found made my stomach turn. Betting pool still on? Marcus, 3 days before their fake ceremony. $500 says she cries during the vows. Jake Morrison, I'll take that bet. Old ladies always cry at weddings. Denise, she's going to be so embarrassed when she finds out. Marcus. There were dozens of messages, screenshots of my Facebook posts about wedding planning, with laughing emoji reactions from all of them. Photos of me meeting with the fake priest, with comments like, "She's eating this up," and Oscar-worthy performance from Father Mike. But the cruelest message was from Marcus himself. The funniest part is she thinks she's so smart, 30 years of teaching, and she can't spot a con happening right in front of her face. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd turned my most joyful moment into entertainment. My tears of happiness, my pride in my son, my genuine emotion watching what I thought was a sacred ceremony, all of it had been a punchline to them. The betting pool had specific categories. Will she cry during the ceremony? $500. Will she figure it out within a year? $300. How long before she gets suspicious? $200. Will she confront us or stay quiet? $400. Total pot, $1,400. They were gambling with my emotions like I was some kind of game show contestant. I scrolled further and found the group planning messages from months earlier. Details about hiring the casting agency, scripts for the fake guests, even rehearsals where they practiced their performances. Remember, the key is making her feel special. Marcus had written, she needs to think this is all about tradition and family values. Keep her focused on how happy we are. Bet amount, $500. Subject, how long before she catches on? Winner, takes all. Father Michael wasn't a priest. His LinkedIn profile read, character actor, specializing in authority figures. Recent work, fake wedding officiant. That afternoon, I did what any good teacher would do when facing a research project. I got organized. I made lists. I started investigating. I began with the priest who had performed the ceremony. Father Michael O'Sullivan, a kind-faced man in his 60s who had delivered such a moving sermon about the sanctity of marriage. He'd seemed so genuine, so spiritual. His Irish accent had added authenticity to every blessing he'd spoken over Marcus and Denise. Finding him online took less than 10 minutes. His real name was Leland Vance. No, Father, no, O. His LinkedIn profile showed his actual profession, character actor with 30 years of experience in dinner theater and corporate training videos. His specialties were listed as authority figures, religious leaders, and trustworthy professionals. Under recent work experience, wedding officiant, private family event, Atlanta, GA. I clicked through to his portfolio website. There he was in a dozen different costumes, a judge, a doctor, a police officer, a professor, and yes, a priest. The same robes he'd worn at my son's fake wedding. His rates were posted clearly: $300 for a 2-hour event, $500 for full-day ceremonies with multiple costume changes. I called the phone number listed on his website. He answered on the second ring. Leland Vance, Character Services. Hello, this is Audrey Brennan. You performed my son's wedding ceremony 3 years ago in Atlanta. The silence stretched for several seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost all trace of the Irish accent. Ma'am, I think you have the wrong number. No, Michael, I don't think I do. Graham Brennan and Paige Adler, First Baptist Church of Atlanta. You wore the gray vestments with the silver cross. I can't discuss client confidentiality. Client confidentiality? My teacher voice came out sharp and clear. Is that what you call defrauding a grieving widow? Another long pause. Ma'am, I was hired to perform a ceremonial service. I was told all parties were consenting adults who understood the nature of the event. The nature of the event? Which was what, exactly? A renewal ceremony. I was told the couple had already been legally married and wanted a formal celebration for family members who couldn't attend the original wedding. And you believed that? Ma'am, I perform a lot of renewal ceremonies. It's not uncommon for families to want a more elaborate celebration after a simple courthouse wedding. But I wasn't finished. I'd found the casting agency's website, and their client portfolio was extensive. The maid of honor was actually Jennifer Walsh, a performance artist who specialized in emotional support roles at $200 per event. The emotional aunt who'd cried during the vows was Susan Martinez, whose headshot showed her range of expressions from joyful celebration to tasteful grief. Every single person I'd thought was celebrating with my family had been paid to perform happiness. The casting director's invoice itemized everything. 1. Emotional mother figure, $300. Which fake guest would hurt you most to discover? Name them. My bank statements told a different story than my memories. $15,000 itemized, categorized, and completely wasted on professional liars. I spread everything across my dining room table like evidence at a crime scene. Every receipt, every canceled check, every credit card statement from the months leading up to their fake wedding. My teacher's brain kicked into high gear, organizing the financial carnage into neat piles. The flowers alone cost $1,200. White roses and baby's breath, arranged in cascading bouquets that had looked so beautiful in the church photographs. The florist's invoice was still tucked in my wedding planning folder, right next to my notes about wanting something traditional and elegant for my son's special day. Catering, $4,000. $300 for dinner at the country club reception. I remembered tasting the salmon weeks beforehand, discussing wine pairings with the sommelier, worrying whether the vegetarian options would satisfy Marcus's college friends. All of it consumed by actors who were probably laughing at the quality of the free meal they were getting paid to eat. The photographer's deposit, $800. I'd written that check 6 months before the ceremony, thrilled to secure someone who specialized in emotional family moments. The irony tasted like copper pennies in my mouth. There never was a photographer, just someone with a phone camera taking pictures for their group chat entertainment. My wedding dress shopping trip with Denise, $600 at the bridal salon downtown. I'd insisted on paying because every bride deserves to feel beautiful on her special day. We'd spent 3 hours trying on dresses, laughing in the dressing room, sharing that mother-daughter moment I'd dreamed about since Marcus was born. Denise had cried when she found the one. A simple A-line dress with delicate lace sleeves. I'd cried too, watching her transform into a bride. Now I knew those were probably tears of guilt, not joy. She was already married. The dress was just a costume. The church rental, $500. Sound system, $200. Wedding programs, $150. Each expense represented a moment where I'd believed I was creating something sacred for my family. Instead, I was funding my own humiliation. I pulled out my calculator and added everything up. $15,437.62. My husband's life insurance money he'd left specifically for family emergencies and special occasions, spent on the most expensive lie anyone had ever told me. But when I cross-referenced these expenses with the phone numbers on the receipts, something didn't add up. Half the vendors I'd supposedly paid couldn't be reached. Their business numbers were disconnected. Their addresses led to empty lots. The actors were paid from a different account, an account I'd never seen before. The account was opened in Marcus's name 3 days after he read my will, funded by a loan against my house, a house he had no legal right to touch. I sat in the bank manager's sterile office, staring at documents that made my blood run cold. Preston Hayes had been my banker for 12 years, and I'd never seen him look so uncomfortable. His usually confident demeanor cracked as he slid the loan paperwork across his mahogany desk. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to ask you directly. Did you co-sign this home equity loan for your son?" The signature at the bottom looked like mine. The handwriting slanted at the same angle, formed the same loops in the M of Margaret. But I'd never seen this document before in my life. "James, I never signed anything like this. I don't even know what a home equity loan is." His face went pale. "Ma'am, this loan was secured against your property for $25,000. The funds were deposited into an account listed under Graham Brennan and Associates." "Graham Brennan and Associates? What associates?" "He works at the hardware store." James pulled up something on his computer screen, his fingers clicking nervously across the keyboard. The account shows regular payments to various entertainment industry vendors. Casting agencies, costume rental companies, venue coordinators. My house, the house Russell and I had bought 37 years ago, where we'd raised Marcus, where I'd planned to live out my retirement, had been used as collateral for his fraud scheme. Without my knowledge. Without my permission. "James, that signature isn't mine." He adjusted his glasses and examined the document more closely. "Mrs. Thompson, forgery is a serious criminal matter. If you're stating that this signature was made without your knowledge or consent, we'll need to contact our fraud department immediately." "Contact whoever you need to contact. My son stole my identity and mortgaged my home to pay for actors." The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of teller machines processing transactions. James made several phone calls while I sat there, trying to process the magnitude of Marcus's betrayal. Not only had he violated my privacy by reading my will, not only had he staged an elaborate fake wedding to steal my inheritance money, but he'd also forged my signature to secure funding for his deception. He'd put my home at risk, the house where I'd planned to age safely, where I kept all my memories with Russell, where I thought I was secure. "Mrs. Thompson," James said after his final phone call, "our fraud investigator will need to meet with you this week. We're freezing the account immediately, but there's already been significant activity. Beyond the casting agency payments, there are personal withdrawals, restaurant charges, vacation expenses." "Vacation expenses?" "A trip to Las Vegas 6 months before your son's wedding ceremony. Hotel charges, entertainment expenses, chapel fees. Their real honeymoon, funded with money stolen from my house." The loan officer looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, this signature. We need to discuss fraud charges. 30 years of handling dishonest students taught me one thing. The best consequences come from letting people reveal their own lies." I sat in my home office at 11 o'clock that night, legal pads spread across my desk like lesson plans. But instead of teaching multiplication tables or reading comprehension, I was designing a masterclass in accountability. Every educator learns that punishment without understanding is just cruelty. The goal was never to destroy Marcus and Denise. It was to help them understand the consequences of their choices while protecting myself from further harm. Step 1. Documentation. I photographed every receipt, every bank statement, every text message screenshot. I made copies of the forged loan documents and filed them with my lawyer. If this ended up in court, I wanted an airtight case. Step 2. Control the narrative. Marcus and Denise thought they were still fooling me. That gave me a tremendous advantage. They had no idea I'd discovered their group chat, their betting pool, their mocking conversations about their gullible mother-in-law. Step 3. Create consequences that match the crime. They'd used performance and deception against me. They'd turned my most sacred family moment into entertainment. They'd gambled with my emotions and stolen my financial security. I pulled out a fresh legal pad and started brainstorming. What would make them understand the depth of their betrayal without permanently destroying our family relationships? Public exposure? Too harsh, and it would humiliate innocent family members who'd attended the fake ceremony believing it was real. Legal action? Necessary for the financial fraud, but criminal charges against my own son felt like using a nuclear weapon when a firm lesson might suffice. Complete estrangement? That would hurt me as much as them, and it wouldn't teach them anything about repair and growth. Then it hit me. The perfect consequence, elegant in its simplicity. They'd given me a fake wedding. I'd give them a real one. They'd used actors to manipulate my emotions. I'd used truth to help them find genuine ones. They'd stolen my money to fund their deception. They'd pay it back, with interest, and fund their own honest ceremony. I started making lists. Real family members who deserved to witness authentic love, a small church that specialized in intimate ceremonies, vendors who actually existed and provided quality services. Marcus and Denise wanted to be married in front of family? Fine, but this time it would be real. This time, they'd stand up and pledge honesty to each other in front of people who actually cared about them. This time, their emotions would be genuine, even if they included shame and regret alongside love and commitment. The plan was elegant, educational, and fair. More importantly, it offered them a path toward redemption rather than just punishment. Step 1. Let them think they're still winning. Step 2. Document everything. I want to throw you both a surprise first anniversary party, I told them. They exchanged glances, the first honest communication I'd seen between them in months. We were sitting in their small apartment living room, sharing coffee on a Saturday morning. I'd called ahead to make sure they'd both be home, claiming I had something special to discuss. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was now the one orchestrating surprises. Marcus set down his mug carefully, like he was buying time to think. "Mom, that's really sweet. But you don't need to." "I want to," I interrupted, using my brightest teacher voice. "You two gave me such a beautiful wedding to remember. The least I can do is celebrate your first year together." Denise's face had gone pale again, just like that afternoon when I'd asked about the photographer. She was terrible at hiding her emotions, which made me wonder how she'd managed to fool me for so long. Maybe I just wanted to believe their lies so badly that I'd ignored all the warning signs. "When were you thinking?" Marcus asked, and I caught the slight tremor in his voice. "Well, your wedding anniversary is coming up soon, right? June 15th? Another meaningful glance between them. June 15th was the date of their fake ceremony, the one I'd attended and paid for. Their real wedding anniversary, according to the Vegas chapel receipt I'd found in the financial documents, was December 22nd. "Actually, Mom, we've been talking about keeping anniversaries low-key," Denise said quickly. "Maybe just a quiet dinner at home." "Nonsense. First anniversaries are special. Besides, I've already started making calls." This was only partially true. I hadn't made any calls yet, but I'd spent considerable time planning exactly who those calls would go to. "What kind of calls?" Marcus asked, and I could hear his growing panic. "Guest list calls, of course. I thought we'd invite everyone who made your wedding day so special. All your wedding party, some of the family friends who traveled so far to be there." I paused for effect, watching their faces. "I especially want to thank Father Michael for that beautiful ceremony. Such a spiritual man." The coffee cup slipped from Denise's hands, shattering against their hardwood floor. Hot liquid splashed across the room, and she jumped up to grab paper towels, clearly grateful for the distraction. "Careful, honey," I said sweetly, not moving to help her. "We wouldn't want anyone to get hurt." Marcus was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of fear, guilt, and something that might have been respect. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like he was seeing me clearly. Not as a gullible old woman to be manipulated, but as someone who'd figured out his game and was now playing one of her own. The party planning committee would include some very special guests they'd met before. The invitations went to 30 people. 29 were legitimate family and friends. One was Father Michael, the actor who'd performed their fake ceremony. I found his number in Marcus's phone, which he'd carelessly left unlocked on my kitchen counter again during their weekly dinner visit. This time, I didn't just glance at the text messages. I scrolled through his contacts until I found what I was looking for. Mike S., priest actor. The audacity of it made me laugh out loud. He hadn't even bothered to create a fake name in his phone. Just priest actor, like he was ordering pizza. I called Michael from my home phone the next morning, after Marcus had left for work and Denise was safely at her marketing job. Hello, Michael. This is Audrey Brennan. You performed my son Marcus's wedding ceremony at First Baptist Church in Atlanta. The pause on the other end stretched so long I wondered if he'd hung up. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong… No, Michael, I don't think I do. You wore the gray vestments with the silver cross. You gave that beautiful sermon about the sanctity of marriage vows. You have such a gift for making ceremonies feel authentic. Another pause. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost all traces of the Irish accent he'd used during the ceremony. Ma'am, what can I do for you? I'm planning a surprise first anniversary party for Marcus and Denise, and I'd love for you to attend, as our honored guest. After all, you made their special day possible. I don't think that would be appropriate. Oh, but I insist. It would mean so much to them to see you again, and I'd love to meet your wife, introduce you to the rest of our family. We're having it at my house, much more intimate than a big church event. I could practically hear him sweating through the phone. Mrs. Thompson, I need to be honest with you. Honesty is so important, isn't it? Especially in families. That's why I think it's crucial for you to be there. Saturday, June 15th, at 3 o'clock. I'll text you my address. Ma'am, I really don't think… Michael, you were such an important part of their wedding day. Surely you want to celebrate their happiness continuing? Unless, of course, there's some reason you'd feel uncomfortable seeing them again. The silence stretched again. I waited, using the same patient technique I'd perfected with students who were trying to decide whether to confess or keep lying. I suppose I could stop by briefly, he finally said. Wonderful. And Michael, I'm so looking forward to hearing more about your work. You're clearly very talented at what you do. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen feeling simultaneously guilty and triumphant. I'd never manipulated anyone like this before, but Marcus and Denise had given me a masterclass in deception. Father Michael agreed to attend. His voice shook when he said yes. Marcus cornered me in my own kitchen. Mom, you can't invite him. Please. The word please told me everything he knew that I knew. It was Thursday evening, 2 days before the anniversary party. Marcus had shown up unannounced, something he rarely did anymore. He stood by my kitchen sink, blocking my path to the refrigerator, his face pale and desperate. Invite who, sweetheart? I asked, opening the dishwasher and calmly loading the dinner plates I'd just finished washing. You know who. The priest. Father Michael. His voice cracked on the word father, like he couldn't quite force the lie out anymore. I straightened up and looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he gotten so thin? When had those worry lines appeared around his eyes? The stress of maintaining their deception was eating him alive, and part of me felt sorry for him, but only part. Why wouldn't I invite him? He made your wedding day so special. Mom, please don't do this. Do what, Marcus? Throw a party for my son and daughter-in-law? He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture he'd done since he was 5 years old whenever he was caught misbehaving. Some things never change. How long have you known? He whispered. I set down the dish towel and faced him directly. Known what? Don't make me say it. Oh, but I think you need to say it, all of it. Marcus slumped against my kitchen counter like a deflated balloon. The fight went out of him all at once, replaced by something that looked like relief. We never had a real wedding. Not the one you came to. That was all fake. The priest, the guests, everything. The words tumbled out in a rush. We got married in Vegas 6 months before, just the two of us. But your will said… My will said what, Marcus? It said I had to be properly married in a church with family present to inherit anything. And we needed the money, Mom. Denise had student loans, and I wanted to buy a house, and so you hired actors to steal my inheritance. We hired actors to make you happy. You always talked about wanting to walk me down the aisle, about having a traditional church wedding. We thought we could give you that and steal $15,000 from me in the process. He winced. It wasn't supposed to be stealing. The inheritance would have been mine anyway, eventually. Eventually being the key word, Marcus. That money wasn't yours to take. I know. I know that now. Do you? Because you also forged my signature to get a loan against my house. You put my home at risk to fund your little performance. His face went white. How did you find out about that? I'm not as stupid as you thought, apparently. Though according to your group chat, you found it pretty funny that your old lady mother couldn't spot a con right in front of her face. Marcus actually staggered backward like I'd slapped him. "You saw the messages?" "Every single one. The betting pool about whether I'd cry during your fake vows, the jokes about my traditional values, the bets on how long it would take me to figure out you'd lied to me." I kept my voice steady, but inside I was trembling with hurt and rage. "Tell me, Marcus, what was the funniest part? When I cried during the ceremony? When I hugged that fake priest and thanked him for blessing your marriage? When I spent my dead husband's life insurance money to pay for your performance? Mom, when did I become a joke to you?" His final plea, "We did it because we love you." My response changed everything. The moment Father Michael walked into my living room, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. You could hear Denise's sharp intake of breath from across the room. The party was in full swing by 3:30. My sister Valerie had driven down from Savannah with her husband Bob. My neighbor Mrs. Eileen Chenhad brought her famous potato salad. Marcus's college roommate Jake, one of the few legitimate guests from the fake wedding, was telling stories about their freshman year pranks. Everyone was laughing and catching up, completely unaware they were about to witness the collapse of a year-long lie. I was refilling the punch bowl when the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see a nervous-looking man in his 60s, shifting his weight from foot to foot on my front porch. "I'll get it," I called out, wiping my hands on my apron. Leland Vance looked exactly like he had at the fake wedding, minus the priestly robes. He wore a simple button-down shirt and khakis, and his hands shook slightly when he handed me a small bouquet of grocery store flowers. "Mrs. Thompson, thank you for inviting me." "Father Michael, come in, come in. Everyone's so excited to see you again." I led him into the living room where the party fell silent. Marcus and Denise stood frozen by the fireplace, looking like deer caught in headlights. Several guests smiled and waved at the man they remembered as the wedding officiant. Others looked confused, they'd never seen him before. "Look, everyone, Father Michael could make it after all." My sister Valerie walked over with a warm smile. "Father, it's so nice to see you again. That was such a beautiful ceremony you performed." Michael's face turned red. He glanced desperately at Marcus, who was staring at the floor. "Actually," Michael said quietly, "I think there's been some confusion." "No confusion at all," I said brightly. "This is the man who married Marcus and Denise. Though I have to admit, Father, I'm curious about something." The room went completely quiet. Even the background music seemed to fade. "I've been trying to reach you through the church directory, but First Baptist has no record of a Father Michael O'Sullivan. Isn't that strange?" Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. Denise made a small whimpering sound. "In fact," I continued, "when I called the diocese office, they told me no Irish priests have been assigned to Atlanta parishes in the past 5 years. So imagine my surprise when I discovered your LinkedIn profile, Michael. Character actor specializing in authority figures. Very impressive resume." The silence stretched until my neighbor Mrs. Eileen Chen whispered, "What's happening here?" Marcus finally found his voice. "Mom, can we please talk about this privately?" "Why would we need privacy, sweetheart? These are all family and friends, the same people who attended your beautiful church wedding." I looked around the room at the confused faces. Except, of course, half the people at that wedding were hired actors, including Father Michael here. Several guests gasped. My sister Valerie took a step backward, her hand flying to her chest. "The wedding you all attended was completely fake. Marcus and Denise were already married. They eloped to Las Vegas 6 months earlier, but they needed to stage a church ceremony to steal my inheritance money." Margaret raised her glass. "To Marcus and Denise, and to the truth about their real wedding anniversary." The apology came with a check, $15,000 plus interest, calculated to the penny, but money couldn't purchase forgiveness that required something else. 3 days after the party disaster, Marcus and Denise appeared at my front door with an envelope and red, swollen eyes. The party had ended abruptly after my revelation, with confused relatives demanding explanations and poor Leland Vance practically running to his car. We sat in my living room, the same room where Denise had first confessed, where I'd served tea to actors pretending to be family friends, where I'd planned what I thought was the most important day of my son's life. "Mom," Marcus began, his voice hoarse, "we've been to 3 banks. We liquidated our savings account, cashed out Denise's 401k early, and took a personal loan. This should cover everything. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a certified check for $16,247.33, the original $15,000 plus calculated interest at the current savings rate. We also went to see a lawyer, Denise added quietly, about the forged loan documents. We're going to contact your bank and make this right, whatever it takes. I looked at the check, then at their faces. Marcus had lost weight. I could see it in his cheekbones, the way his shirt hung loose around his shoulders. Denise looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Money isn't the real issue here, I said. We know, Marcus whispered. We know money can't fix what we did to you. Then what can? They exchanged glances, the kind of look that passes between people who've been discussing something for hours. We don't know, Denise admitted. We destroyed your trust. We made a mockery of something sacred to you. We turned your love for us into a weapon against you. We hurt you in ways we can't even fully understand, Marcus added. And we did it for money. There's no excuse for that. I folded the check and set it on the coffee table between us. You're right, there isn't. The silence stretched uncomfortable and long. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Eileen Chen working in her garden, the normal sounds of a Tuesday afternoon continuing, while our family tried to figure out how to heal from this catastrophe. There is one thing, I said finally, one condition for my forgiveness. Hope flickered in both their faces. I want you to get married again, really married, in front of people who actually love you, not people you paid to perform love. I want to see you make real vows to each other, promises you actually intend to keep. Marcus looked confused. But we're already married. No, you're legally married. There's a difference. Marriage isn't just about paperwork, it's about commitment made in community, promises witnessed by people who care about your future together. Forgiveness would require one final condition, one they hadn't expected. The small church held only 12 people this time. No hired actors, no performance pressure, no hidden cameras, just family who chose to be there honestly. Grace Lutheran Church sat on the outskirts of town, a simple white building with stained glass windows that cast colored light across worn wooden pews. Pastor Miller had been our family minister when Marcus was growing up. He'd baptized my son, confirmed him, and listened to my confession about discovering the lies that had torn our family apart. Real love doesn't need spectacle, he'd told me during our planning meeting. It just needs witnesses who care about truth. Marcus wore his father's wedding suit, altered to fit his thinner frame. I'd found it in my closet, still in the garment bag from Russel's funeral, and something about seeing my son wear his father's clothes felt like completion of a circle. Denise wore a simple blue dress, no elaborate gown, no veil, no pretense. She'd asked if she could wear something that belonged to me, and I'd given her my mother's pearl necklace. 3 generations of women, connected by jewelry and hope. The guest list included only people who mattered. My sister Valerie and her husband Mrs. Eileen Chen from next door, Marcus's best friend from high school who lived in town, Denise's parents who had driven down from North Carolina looking embarrassed and confused, and a few close relatives who'd been willing to attend after the truth came out. No wedding party, no elaborate decorations, no professional photographer, just my digital camera and Valerie's phone. Pastor Miller kept the ceremony simple. Marcus and Denise have already made legal vows to each other. Today they're making spiritual ones, in the presence of God and the people who love them most. When it came time for vows, Marcus's voice broke as he looked at his wife. I promise to be honest with you, and with everyone who matters to us. I promise to earn back the trust I threw away, especially my mother's trust. I promise to love you without lies. Denise's vows were even simpler. I promise to choose truth over convenience, even when it's hard. I promise to honor the people who love us by being worthy of that love. There were tears, real ones this time, not the manufactured emotion of hired actors, but the complex feelings of people trying to repair something precious that had been broken. After Pastor Miller pronounced them husband and wife for the second time, Marcus hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on us, Mom. I never gave up on you, I whispered back. I gave up on your lies. The reception was cake and coffee in the church fellowship hall. No elaborate dinner, no dancing, no speeches, just family talking quietly, trying to figure out how to move forward. Margaret's wedding gift surprised everyone, including herself. The photo album contained both weddings now, the fake and the real, but only one page had my handwritten notes. This is what love looks like when it chooses truth. 6 months have passed since that small ceremony at Grace Lutheran. Marcus and Denise come for dinner every Sunday now, a tradition we started as part of rebuilding our relationship. We don't pretend the hurt never happened, but we've learned to talk about difficult things without hiding behind lies or silence. The forged loan against my house was resolved with help from my lawyer and the bank's fraud department. Marcus paid back every penny, plus the legal fees. More importantly, he changed all his passwords and gave me access to his financial accounts not because I demanded it, but because he wanted to prove his commitment to transparency. Denise enrolled in a financial planning course and took over managing their budget. She sends me monthly updates, not because I require them, but because she says accountability helps her sleep better at night. The fake wedding photos are stored in a box in my closet, but I haven't thrown them away. They're evidence of a time when my family chose deception over truth, but they're also proof of how far we've traveled toward healing. Sometimes progress requires remembering where you started. The real wedding photos are in frames throughout my house. Simple pictures of simple moments. Marcus fixing his father's too big collar, Denise laughing with my sister, Pastor Miller blessing their rings, the small group of us sharing cake afterward. No professional lighting, no staged poses, just life happening honestly. My will has been updated. The inheritance clause that started this whole mess has been replaced with simpler language. To my son Marcus, who I pray will continue choosing truth over convenience in all areas of his life. Curtis Chen, my lawyer, suggested the wording. He said consequences teach better than requirements. The most surprising change has been in my relationship with Denise. Before the truth came out, our connection felt forced, like we were both trying too hard to be the perfect mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Now that we've survived her betrayal and my anger, we've found genuine friendship. She helps me with technology, and I help her understand Marcus's quirks and family history. I think we're closer now than we ever would have been if we'd never gone through this, she told me last month. Lies kept us at a distance. Truth brought us together. Marcus has changed too. The stress of maintaining deception aged him prematurely, but honesty has brought back his smile. He's more careful with words now, more thoughtful about promises. He asks questions instead of making assumptions. I thought lying would protect people's feelings, he explained during one of our Sunday dinners. I didn't understand that lies rob people of the chance to make real choices. The financial cost of their deception was significant, $15,000 plus legal fees, early withdrawal penalties, and loan interest. But the real cost was the year we lost to lies, the trust that had to be rebuilt from scratch, and the relationships that were damaged by their choices. Trust, once broken, becomes something different when repaired, not weaker, but more carefully tended, like a bone that heals stronger at the break. I keep both photo albums because they tell a complete story, how love can be twisted into manipulation, and how it can be redeemed through courage and truth. Both weddings happened. Both taught us something essential about who we are and who we want to become.